Last but not least, we have with us Shelby Austin, who's a partner with Deloitte Forensic, and she leads its legal project solutions service offering. Prior to joining Deloitte, she was founder of ADT Legal Services in Toronto, which was a law firm that staffed and managed large documentary discovery and due diligence projects for corporations and other law firms. Started that company, and that company was eventually acquired by Deloitte. Prior to founding ATD, Shelby was a partner at a leading Bay Street law firm. Can I say Davies? Yeah. These things are always kind of anonymized. Her practice focused on complex corporate and commercial litigation matters. So once again, someone with a diverse experience, a very accomplished individual. She also has received several awards, including recently Rising Stars Award given by Lexpert magazine to leading lawyers under 40, and was also found to be one of Canada's most powerful women by the Women's Executive Network.
First of all, I'm so glad I did not do a PowerPoint. That far exceeds anything I could have ever done. Very impressed. So I'm going to take a slightly different approach. If Malcolm and Monica talked about access to justice, I'm going to talk about more access to jobs. You know, there is no question that you know, law is ripe for innovation. And in part, that's because lawyers tend to be very bad entrepreneurs. And that might seem like a controversial statement considering how driven towards success we all are. But the simple fact is that we're not on the whole very resilient. So a guy by the name of Dr. Larry Richards did a study on personality traits and found that lawyers in general are in the lower half of the population in terms of resilience. And that on average, most of us score below 30%. And it's not infrequent for us to score in the lowest 10% of resilience. And Dr. Richards' conception of resilience is that people score low in resilience have character traits that make them not deal very well with rejection. Now, in order to be an innovator, you must absolutely be resilient. Now, I can speak from personal experience in saying that failure is an essential part of the journey toward entrepreneurship and innovation and success. So when I opened my business, I quit Davies, as we heard, and a job I love, by the way. And for those of you who don't have summer jobs, Davies rejected me from a summer position in my second year summer, so there's hope yet. And I had convinced myself that it was a good idea to put all of my savings into renting a 3,000 square foot loft space, buy, not rent, but buy 50 computers, and sit there. And in month one, I was sure it was going to work. And then in month two, when the phone had not rung once, I was a little less sure. Month three, things were looking a little bit scarier. And then by month four, I was close to being apoplectic. When finally I begged to do work for free, that's how I got my first client. And then eventually the clients came. But I was so close to failure, I can't even tell you. And it's amazing, you know, how far that's come. Now, in order to be an entrepreneur, you pretty much have to have, my husband would call it temerity, but really you have to have the belief that if you slam yourself into a brick wall repeatedly, that eventually the brick wall will fall. Most people call that insanity, but that's what it takes. So with that in mind, where are we going? Where are the opportunities in this legal environment? Now, with the economic downturn and increasing legal costs, there's no question that the face of the legal field is changing, and lawyers are now being asked to be more dynamic and to have different skills. We're being asked to be project managers, and we're being asked to be problem solvers. So it's not just about legal expertise anymore. So clients are the ones driving the innovation. And you know, in my field, I'm more talking about big business, but we'll get to that. They now want more value. Lawyers, they want lawyers to have a better sense of their business, and quite simply, they want to pay less and get more services for that dollar. Now, Deloitte, before I got there, but recently completed a survey of law firms and professional services firms, and the #1 place for innovation was found to be in changing models of legal service delivery and, of course, in technology. Now, talking about those service delivery trends, more and more what we're seeing is the disaggregation of legal services, which means rather than going to a single firm for all of my legal work, or even for an entire file, we're seeing clients strive to lower their legal bills by separating out the work. So this takes me to my personal field of legal process outsourcing, and other models, and what has typically, I guess, in the past year been termed new law. Legal process outsourcing, or LPO, as defined quite helpfully by Wikipedia, refers to the practice of a law firm or corporation obtaining legal support services from an outside law firm or legal support services company. These include, but are not limited to, the Indian firms you've heard of, like Integrion and Pangea 3, but also, my company, which is now part of Deloitte, where you might not think of them being in LPO. Now, typically on files, in-house counsel, and I say in-house counsel because in our world, unlike where you would have individuals purchasing legal services, there's no such thing. The problems have to be big enough, they have to be bad enough to warrant this kind of treatment, or they're just, it's not a candidate. And so typically the clients will hire a big national firm to run the deal or the piece of litigation. They then hire us under the supervision of that external counsel to perform the repetitive commoditized tasks. These are the tasks like document review or due diligence. If you are lucky enough to have summers, you might spend some of your summer doing. It used to be that law firms would try and hang on to this work, which is significant. It can represent up to 50% of the billings on a single file. And they used to hang on to it for obvious reasons. But these days, it's interesting because firms are often competing to bid with us in order to show how innovative they can be to their clients. So the market has done a 180 change from when I started even 5 years ago till now. In that we're actually seeing innovations in big law as well, where they're trying to partner with LPOs. And just so you have a sense of the size of the market, so you don't think of this as like a small business opportunity, the LPO market is conservatively estimated to be about $2.4 billion globally a year. So it's big business. Now, turning to another form of service delivery model, we should look at the formation of a company called Axiom out of the US. And Axiom identified a market inefficiency. Companies were having legal tasks performed by high-priced lawyers. And what they figured out was, in their case, it wasn't the wrong people doing it, as it was in the case of LPO. So LPO, you're having more junior and non-lawyer resources assist with repetitive commoditized tasks. So in this case, Axiom found that it was the right people, but they were in the wrong environment. So lawyers were being cluttered with overhead. They call it the law library mahogany paneling and 25th floor visit phenomenon. But basically, the Axiom model brings in experienced lawyers and bills them out to in-house counsel at drastically reduced rates. And they do that by having the lawyers either work from home or typically from the clients as well. Basically, what used to be called temp work. And what Axiom chases after is the soft middle of the market, meaning not the bet the farm pieces of litigation, not the repetitive commoditized tasks, but somewhere in the middle. And again, that's a multi-billion-dollar market. And over time, this model has become even more innovative, because previously it used to be that they just used to bill their lawyers out at less. Rather than $450 an hour, it was $250 an hour. And now, over time, Axiom has found that it has to innovate even further. And so that's where we're starting to see alternative pricing models really be pushed. Again, demonstrating that hiccups are a natural part of the journey toward innovation and entrepreneurship, even after raising $5 million at the outset, which Axiom was able to do, which as an entrepreneur in the legal field, I don't know how they did it at the time, because that was in the year 2000. They almost went broke just before landing their first major client, which was Reuters. And it wasn't really, and they started in 2000, it wasn't really until the financial meltdown in 2008 that they were able to gain significant traction in the market. And since then, they've been able to have 72% growth year over year, which is unbelievable. And in 2011, had 130 million in revenues, which is, a big business. And just so you know that Canada is in fact keeping pace, we have our own versions of Axiom. There's a company by the name of Cognition, and another one by the name of Conduit, and a few others as well. And again, those are growing on average about 25% year over year. And if you contrast that to DLA Piper, which was historically the largest law firm in the world, and they're having huge growth for a law firm. They're still seeing 13% growth. It's much slower growth, and that's mostly through acquisitions. The final service delivery model innovation I was going to talk about was technology, but I'm going to go through it really quickly because Monica's done more than a beautiful job of that. In addition to website-based technology, more and more we're seeing the use of predictive analytics. Again, if WeVorce is gearing toward access to justice, this is big business legal technology. So these are the same tools that allow Google to understand what ads they should put in your Gmail. It's the same tools that allows Facebook to sell me baby products. Now, suffice it to say that these are allowing lawyers to streamline their work, or otherwise put, they're giving lawyers less work to work on. And as just one example, so my teams, I could have 100 lawyers in a program called Relativity by Kay Cura. And if you were to put 1 million emails into Relativity and properly run the predictive coding analytics there, you could minimize the number of documents to be reviewed by close to 95% if used properly. So, I mean, they're huge and powerful tools. Again, you know, in the case of the predictive analytics, you know, billions of dollars in technology have been invested in these companies. And other examples of the use of such technologies include contract review tools like Diligence Engine that find similar clauses in order to speed up the process. And these days, IBM is even working on, you know, a computer lawyer. They're working on something called Watson that is supposed to be a robot lawyer. So to conclude, let's make this about you for a second. We all know that there's a grim legal market out there. Traditional law firms are limiting their numbers, and as a result, finding a job has become kind of tough. But I'm here to tell you that with the innovations that have come along and those that have yet to come, there's a huge opportunity for you. Either to start your own new and innovative law practice, or to join one. So we in New Law are growing every day and importantly, hiring every day. So when I started, people didn't want to come and work for me. They said to me, like, document review and due diligence? Like, really, isn't that what the law clerks and paralegals do? And now somewhere in the range of 5%, and that's conservatively, of New Law grads will end up coming to work for me. You know, people are clamoring to work at Cognition, clamoring to work at Conduit. And that was also previously a field which was really just temp work. And so what was once seen as too far outside the traditional model of success is now seen as, dare I say it, cool. You know, everyone who works for me comes to work in jeans, they work in a loft. You know, and while we've become a little bit more corporate since joining Deloitte, you know, it still has the feel of working for a startup. So the other good piece of news is, despite what you read in the press, traditional law firms are also innovating. So McCarthy's, for example, is developing all sorts of partnerships with new law firms and companies. And I think in fairly short order, we'll see big law actually enter into these fields. I often joke that my next job will be working for like a big law firm, helping them enter the field. But you know, all of which is to say that while we don't know what is coming, we do know that new things are coming, and that your class will be the beneficiary of that. So let me leave you with 3 thoughts. Number 1, take risk. Understand the risks, quantify the risks, don't take stupid risks. But know that by taking calculated risks, there are big rewards. Number 2, be courageous. Be an innovator requires that you lead and not just follow. If you have an idea that will create more cost-effective and efficient service delivery models, you know, you'll have an opportunity to carve out a path for yourself. And then finally, be resilient. I know that often the best opportunities come from outside traditional models of success, but just remember how close success is to failure. Thank you.